Welcome to the Glamping Guy Podcast, episode 5.
I think team building is so important, and networking yourself is so important, and telling everyone the crazy things that you're doing with your, even if it's just a tent in your backyard, tell everyone about it because it'll take you places.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Jew of the Glamping Guy, and welcome back to another episode of the Glamping Guy Podcast. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Lindsey Severt, who has an incredible journey in the glamping industry. Lindsey got started back in 2021 with a couple of bell tents in Virginia, and while she faced some regulatory hurdles, it didn't stop her from expanding across several states, including West Virginia, Arizona, New York. She's got a big house in California she talks about a little bit. In this episode, we dive deep into some of her experiences, including her first setup there in Virginia, and it cost just about $20,000, and included some awesome amenities like outdoor showers and fire pits, and now she's operating facilities all over the country. And part of that, the importance of networking, building partnerships, and even her vision of combining glamping with special events like weddings and corporate retreats. There's so much packed in this conversation that you're not going to want to miss this episode. So let's get into it with Lindsey Severt. Hi, Lindsey. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, Chris. How are you?
Thank you for this take 2 of the Glamping Guy Podcast. I should just mention right off the bat to the viewers who are watching or listening to right now, we had the awesomest conversation a couple weeks ago and got to know Lindsey better. I've known her before. We've met each other before, but I got to know really her real estate and her ambitions in glamping. And we talked. And I was thinking, this is going to be an awesome podcast for my viewers and listeners. And then we discovered that after we got off the call, I discovered that I did not press record. And so you were one of the first people I'd asked to be on this podcast because I respect you so much and I admire your work. So, but then it just got lost into oblivion in history that will never be recorded. But you were kind enough to say, let's do a take 2. And here we are.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, here we are. No, I'm more than happy to do it. I think this will just be even more polished. And right. I know you have notes from last time. So, yep. I'm ready to get into it.
All right. Well, let's start off with just who are you, your purpose, your vision in glamping, and how you fit into the whole glamping community.
Oh, man, that is a fantastic question. So I'm Lindsey Severt. I have a few business ventures going on concurrently, a little bit of vertical integration. Some of them work together or support one another or clients of each other. So I started in glamping in 2021 and learned a ton and decided that I wanted to go much bigger with my glamping. So, I always share with people that, you need to really define your goals, and that's going to determine how you invest. So I'm thinking really big. I got involved with some joint ventures and have been expanding big glamping properties, but also still looking at doing small boutique, just within a certain size range, not too small. Basically, that's where I'm moving in glamping with tents. There's an RV park now where we're adding on more of what we would think of as glamping, with like doing the tents, maybe some domes, tiny cabins and things like that. So that's where it's going.
All right, let's start unpacking that because you really have your coast to coast, so to speak, and you're I don't want to make it sound really big, but you have a few serious projects going on. Let's start all the way back to 2021, really where you started. Sure. Let's tell that story of how you got involved and what that site is today and how you got there.
Yeah, definitely. So I started, I think, in a phase where a lot of people stay. It's a curiosity and interest. You start to recognize like the math and how much more cash on cash return you can realize with some creative glamping, and also like just even at a more simple level, just doing a short-term stay versus a long-term stay, because at the end of the day, glamping is also a short-term play most of the time, unless you're hosting seasonal campers. So that just started to make so much sense to me, but I thought it was a bit of a pipe dream. It just seemed like Airbnb, like setting up an Airbnb sounds really expensive instead of buying like cheap multifamily and a lot of the popular areas like the Midwest, which is where I'm from. So I was looking there And I was also looking in Virginia because I was living in Virginia at the time, and Shenandoah was like very comfortable 2 hours away from where I was living. So I just set up a search. I just asked myself the age-old why not question, and then continued to ask that all the way to where I am today. So cute little property popped up with some acreage. It had an additional lot next door, which got me really excited. I like the idea of doing it as a land hack, so I was actually able to move there as my primary. So I did move there. I brought an RV because I knew I was going to be tearing some stuff up. And so I lived in my van on the land and redid a cottage, and then built a glamp site on one parcel, and then built a second glamp site a few months later on the second parcel that was there. So we had 3 units going, including the cottage. The 2 glamping units were just killing it. They were off grid. If in terms of the numbers, I'm happy to go into that too. It was about $20,000 to set both of those up. That does not include buying the land or any debt service that we had for holding costs, because I attribute that all to the cottage. The mortgage was actually attached to. So it was like just super powerful in terms of what kind of income we were realizing for the cash we had to put in. Yeah.
Yeah, so you bought a property with a cottage on it, so you already had a residence on it, and then but you actually lived in a van. Did you rent the cottage out too?
I did at a certain point, yeah. And it just I thought I would be able to use the cottage more because it was still my primary. Like that's where I was getting my mail. That's where I was sleeping every night, somewhere on the land. But it was 2021 was a great tourism year. We were very busy. So I did not.
Both. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
The day people busting
know.
out of COVID and stuff. It was a great year.
Exactly. We'll have another upswing like that at some point. I'm looking forward to being as set up as I can be by the time that comes around. But yeah, I didn't get to sleep in the cottage as much as I thought I would. Once we finished renovating it.
To rent that out, and then you had 2 other glamping operations or glamping venues, I'd call them. And yeah, of course, you don't tie the property to that. They cost $20,000 each, or $20,000 for both of them.
For both.
Yeah. What were they? What units?
So, yeah, great question. So we set up decks with tents on them, and then we furnished them to be like more of a luxurious stay, but still very off grid. There was no dedicated power. We did run water. We had outdoor showers and then spigots, so people did have water, but it wasn't like they had a sink inside necessarily, or even really a proper sink. I had like a
what
camping
kind of tents
sink
were they?
there.
Were they wall tents or bell tents?
We did bell tents. So they were the circular bell tents. They were 16.4 feet across. They had 11-foot height. So they felt a lot larger than they were from the height. It was actually really nice, and people loved them. We also set up like gas fire pit. I didn't want to encourage wood burning that close to a national park in that wooded of an area. So we did gas fire pits. We did have wood stoves inside. So we did, and we upgraded on those because we were much busier. I was expecting very little activity during the winter, and I was slammed. So I had to actually spend more money.
Winter glamping is a thing. That's what I keep saying. It is a thing. People do it.
Personally, not for me. I like to be very warm, but I will say, like, I did stay overnight in the tent in like February I had a friend come in from out of town, and we were at least comfortable when we went to bed. We weren't the best stokers. We were very tired, so we woke up freezing. But if we had been a little bit more on top of it, you could comfortably sit like in your t-shirt inside the tent in the middle of winter, as long as we just made sure that the BTUs coming off of that fireplace were going to be significant enough to keep it warm in that weather. It also would melt the snow. If the snow was coming down and there was a fire inside, it would melt right off the tent. So in terms of maintaining it, it was really only hard if no one was using it. So then we'd have to go push the snow off the top, make sure we didn't damage the bell tents. But they did hang out all winter. We got like 8 inches of very wet snow at one point. So it's possible. It's very possible and still very lucrative. More challenging, but still lucrative.
And Shenandoah Valley, it's not like Minnesota cold. That's our snow. That's like probably not too dissimilar to me. You still have very nice days in the winter.
Oh yeah.
Same
We'll
here.
get sunny days.
Yeah, and I think that's most of the climate. You really have to go into the northern climate to totally. I mean, where if you were in northern Minnesota, maybe winter glamping would not be an option. But most of
Oh,
the climates have those warm days during the winter that people will want to bust out on the weekend. And
yeah.
that what you did wood burning stoves. I still do propane, but propane is 20,000 BTU and wood is 50,000. So wood,
Hmm.
you can get a fire going with a wood stove, and it could be 10 below zero, and you could be walking around in your underwear. It's really, really hot in those
Yeah.
canvas pits.
Yeah,
And
you can heat
nights.
yourself out.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I started. I started off with a hunting tent, and so
Yep.
we would go hunting at 12,000 foot altitude, and yeah, it could be
Yeah.
10 below at night. But you just keep stoking that fire, and
Yeah.
it stays nice and warm.
Yeah. We
So
also provided like extremely thick, like very heavy duvet covers, and actually about king size for my queen bed, so that the blanket hung totally over the bed and like trapped all the body heat.
oh,
So that
nice,
worked
yeah.
that worked pretty well. I would say the one thing I was going to do if what we're going to get into next hadn't happened and I didn't get to run another winter season, but I probably would have planned to run just a small amount of voltage to both tents so that we could actually put the mattresses themselves, because of the memory foam, that would be cold. So the mattresses
Right.
were very cold. So I probably would have added like some sort of heating pad element. After much reviewing, I know those can be a bit dangerous. So taken a while, but I would have spent whatever needed to be spent on a couple of those for the mattresses. And I think that would have taken care of the primary winter complaint that we had, was just that no matter how warm you get the tent, the mattress
The
was only
mattress
warm
is so
right where your
cold.
body was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one thing I would like as a pro tip for anyone trying to do the winter glamping.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Or maybe some sort of like because you have these like minus 20 degree sleeping bags. That's what we
True.
did in the winter for a while. If it got really cold, here's some sleeping bags you can crawl into. And then
Hmm.
they're expensive sleeping bags, but that's what they're there for, is for those
Exactly.
sub-zero weather. And then that takes care of the underneath heat. But yeah, a heating pad, that's a good idea. But anyway,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about that transition. So yeah, that well, is that operation still going on?
Yeah, great question. So basically, we could have kept one tent running because of the way that the regulation was written. We had two, and
Mhm.
technically we should have been okay per the zoning as it reads, because it was one tent or two or more in an area. An area was synonymous with parcel, so two parcels, one each. So we weren't becoming a campground, so to speak. But the lawyer at the county determined that if you add the phrase that it was like, my setup was like to an area, so I was now in violation. I got the bad letter in the mail, as I call it. So then we considered
This is taking
rezoning.
a turn. Dun dun dun. It's
I
coming to
know
this. So
it
you built
was
something,
gut.
and like me, I mean, like a lot of glamping operations out there,
Mhm.
we got the ball rolling, figured out we loved it, wanted to keep it
Mhm.
rolling, and then all of a sudden we get a letter of violation in the mail, a bad letter that makes us
Yes.
feel like we're running a crack lab in our basement or something. That we feel awful and humiliated and sorry,
Yes.
but then continue with the story. So you got
Yeah.
these letters. So how'd that roll?
Time for a glamping glamourcial.
Glamping is the sexiest asset class in real estate, blowing traditional real estate out of the water. If you are a landowner or a potential landowner or an investor who wants to get into the world of glamping, I invite you to my 4-video course, Easy Entry to a Glamping Business. I'm Chris Jube, the Glamping Guy. You may have seen my videos online. And I attest that while traditional real estate investing boasts maybe 10 or 20% returns, glamping typically returns 50%. In my 5 years of hosting a modest glamping operation, I have grown 100 times my first year's earnings. I will show you how you can do the same. So go to glampingguy.com/easy and get registered today to learn easy entry to a glamping business.
So it was a neighbor's complaint, because the county wasn't like looking for us or anything. They just, once they received a complaint, they had to look into it. They thought it was pretty cool. but it wasn't fully supported by the, if we looked at the zoning and the way that the attorney was looking at it. Could I have argued that like two should have been not considered? Maybe. But for the political capital I would have had to spend, the actual capital I would have had to spend on legal fees, I determined it wasn't worth it, because even still, just 2 units, as great as they were, that I didn't think that was like the best long-term play for my overall business, because there were still, it's pretty logistically heavy, as you know, especially when you have a lot of off-grid components. That means a lot of batteries are offered, a lot of consumables and things that need to be kept up on. So I determined it would actually make more sense to go relocate like you can move everything. You could even move the decks technically if you wanted to. Everything comes apart. It's just wood and screws. So we did find a second location. Regulations have been challenging there as well, so it's still in the works. But I just kept going with other things. So in terms of those 2 tents,
is that in a different county or something?
Yeah,
okay.
We went 1 county over, and we're trying to start glamping on the back of the rear of a farm vineyard. So I think because it's already a business, even though they've made campground regulations more challenging, I think we'll probably be granted variance. Knock on wood. So I'll be working on that really hard this winter, playing politics and everything like that. That said, I still have the cottage there. It makes plenty of money to pay for the mortgage. And then on the second lot, we actually partnered with someone else. So we're building, we wanted to do domes with that person somewhere in a glamping capacity. But then I was like, hey, like, can't do glamping here. We still have this lot. Why don't we try? I just turned to the building official, and I was like, what if we did it as a house? Like, would you allow me to figure out how to turn this what is traditionally a glamping structure, which is a geodesic dome, into a house? And he said, yeah, I think we could definitely figure that out. Like, he looked at it with me. So we determined that the challenge was going to be the environmental factor. So if you're building it as a traditional home, typically have to meet code in terms of like your R value, which is your insulated value. So that is very tricky with a dome, since they're technically by themselves like an R1 or an R0. I think it's an R0. They do sell packages to get you to like an R5, but ceilings typically in Virginia, at least, it's like R30 something. So it's pretty high. So we had some work to do. So we ended up attaching a cabin structure to 2 domes on a deck. So the deck is a foundation, and we're just going to over insulate every actual wall that we have. We also have kick walls built underneath the domes to add insulation there, and those are going to make them taller, which I think is going to be very, very cool. And we're very excited. Our septic, we're currently about to dig holes for all of our piers, which is going to be super fun. Sorry, Dad. It's a long couple of days pouring concrete before it gets too cold. But yeah, the septic's in, so that's super exciting. I think I got that place permitted for a septic almost 2 years ago. So
is it kind of like a duplex, like 2 domes, did you say?
No, we're using 2 domes, but it's all gonna be just one really cool house. So hoping that becomes like a pretty fantastic. I'd like to see it, get a little famous, honestly. So we'll see. Yeah, it's
got a cool factor unique. That you'll be on a cover of a magazine somewhere or something.
I mean, at least at least like YouTube, maybe a little bit of Instagram. I don't know about magazine level, but we'll see where it goes. Rob's involved, so he already has a pretty decent following. Yeah,
that's Rob Abasolo. For the viewers who don't know him. Rob Abasolo, the creator of Glamp Camp, now Host Camp, and that's how we know each other. We met each other in Host Camp, and you're the glamping girl, you're the glamping gal, and I think do this glamping guy spin-off.
Glamping queen keeps coming up. I don't know if I can really lean into that. Yeah,
good. Lean into it. Get the domain.
Good Lord. Yeah, but he's great, and he has a pretty big presence. He also, he just stopped doing Bigger Pockets. He was the co-host on there for a couple of years. So with him involved, I think it's even more possible, and we're trying to take it very unique. We actually just to discuss like going even crazier for the interior design. He's been working with her name's Bridget with Funkit. So we'll see. They'll at least collaborate with me. I've designed almost my own Airbnb so far, but I am not it's definitely not something I ever studied, or went to school for. So I am more than happy to defer to people who are excellent at what they do. That's another fun tip for everybody. It's like, if you're not the most qualified person to do something, don't be afraid to go pay for it, because it's probably going to be worth it. Your return is going to be significant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then probably the first thing you tell most of your students who already have glamping, I see this a lot where I'm like, who took your photos? And that's always my first question. Rolling your eyes.
Yeah.
Like, it's $400. You'll make that $400 the very next weekend after you get this done. Like, I promise you.
Yeah.
So
that's true. That's true. But spend the money on photography. That goes along
above all else. Yeah.
But what's really interesting though, Lindsey, is that what you did was you ran into some roadblocks with the property, but you managed to maneuver and figure out how to make something work. So you have a cottage that brings in good revenue, pays the mortgage, and then some, and then you have that other lot, and you're building that out to build a glamping operation, which will be a dome, and that was roadblocked too a little bit, but then you figured it out and talked to the planners and tried to make something happen. I have heard it said before that really anything is permittable. You just got to figure out how to fit that square peg in the round hole, because there's really no glamping permit.
No, not a one-size-fits-all.
It's camping, it's Airbnb, B&B, or something, some way to fit into your jurisdiction, and it's becoming more and more well known, and you seem to be doing a fantastic job there in Virginia.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I am also recognizing that the path of least resistance is buying something that's already zoned, or permitted. So that's not possible for everyone. But I think if you can get in somewhere and kind of just scale up, like a lot of people, as long as it's in line with your goals as well. Like, if your goal is to, let's just live for free, and you're able to do glamping right in your own backyard, it's lovely. Like, I loved living on the land with my glampers and meeting all the people from all over the world, giving them like a really unique experience. We had engagements happen on the property. We had, folks who they'd never been able to get their spouse to go camping with them, even though they love camping. But this was enough of a compromise. It was like, well, there's a nice bed. And like, that's half the issue for most people. Are like, you can be warm and you can sleep on a bed, and like, that's enough. And I loved giving that to people too. It's like giving them that nice compromise so that both parties were really enjoying themselves and connecting. They also loved that we didn't have Wi-Fi, because it forced them to like talk to each other. We ended up putting in those like prompt cards. Yeah. So it like helps facilitate like fun and interesting questions to ask each other that you might not occur to you, and you can cover things you'd never cover in your day-to-day life. So I loved it too much to not keep going. I just had to figure out how, and also some who's. So I couldn't do it all by myself. I had to figure out a business who was also interested in like giving me a land lease so that they could make more money and I could make money. And then I found, my other partners who were also in host camp, and they brought me in to help. My role with that group is to do expansion. So they go and they do all the underwriting. And then once they find something that seems to have decent income, they're like, help me look at like, where can we take a pro forma? Where can we look at this and add, is there undeveloped land? Are there units that can maybe be converted to something else that would make a better return? So it's been great. And it's just not something that I would encourage you to do alone. If you have really big, lofty goals, I think team building is so, so, so important. And networking yourself is so important. And telling everyone the crazy things that you're doing with your, even if it's just a tent in your backyard, tell everyone about it, because it'll take you places. Like, you don't have to have a master plan. I think you just have to be very, very transparent with folks. I think that goes a long way.
I go to the planners too. I used to feel
Yeah.
like I had to lie to them or kind of connive with them or try to figure out a way. They've seen it all. I mean, I
Yeah.
finally just gave up and went, yeah, I'm one of those. I'm one of those guys who are glamping in their backyard. Help me. And then that's
Hmm.
when things started opening up with the powers that be. Is when
Yeah.
I just kind of humbled myself and said, "Gosh, I really like what you said, Lindsay, about how you got the hospitality bug, really, and
Yeah.
just loved what giving to people that were staying on your property." I feel the same way. That it's like I don't want to give this up because
Mm-mm.
I didn't apply for a permit properly. That to me would be a really bad reason to give it up.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I got dinged, but then I got undinged and figured out how to fit in, and then here I am, and like you, we're continuing this hospitality bug and feeding this habit of ours.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're established in Virginia, okay,
Yes.
and doing really well there, but you did mention that you've partnered with other people and you've actually gone around this. So from 2021, 2022, 2023, you're growing that thing, but you're also growing other things or getting involved elsewhere. So let's now
Yeah.
pivot into those projects that you have going on. Love to hear about them.
Yeah. Yeah. So the way it evolved over time, obviously it started just getting my own units up and running. We sold a tiny house that we had built together, my father, uncle, and I, and used that to buy another bigger house. So we're starting to gain a little bit of notoriety locally. And people just really liked what we were doing, the kind of products that we were putting out there into the world. So naturally, someone asked me to manage their listing, and then someone bought one and asked me if they bought one, if I would run it. So that just kind of happened organically. And so I've been growing that service business very heavily as well. And that's going to continue to grow, although I would like to continue to position very talented people in positions so that I'm not giving that company a ton of time. I think it's going to continue to grow on its own. So that happened, and that's really helped our bottom line, obviously. And then because there's just so much, we're touching so many different owners, so many different homes, and just being very involved online, and that's kind of webbed out. So now we have houses we manage in Virginia, West Virginia, Arizona, which is where I am right now, and then also California, right by the Nevada border in Tahoe. So that's grown out. And then I also have Sun Valley Campsites with Timberline Equity. That's the name of our group. So we are looking to do another acquisition, hopefully very, very soon. And so we got really, I want to say lucky. I mean, the guys did great. Like, they are handling the acquisitions. They're fantastic. You absolutely have to interview them too. But we do all feel like we got a little bit lucky. We bought a campground that was just already wonderful and had a lot of it has a heavy seasonal presence. So that made it feel very safe to buy something so expensive, because it's not all transient and a little bit unpredictable. Yes, the transient, we do have transient camping there, and the returns on that for one night are obviously higher than one night for seasonal, but it was just very nice to come into something that had some predictability to it. And then there's 3 areas where we're actually expanding. There was unused cleared land. So we have glamping going in by a creek, which is actually on the way to a waterfall. We just built a dog park down there. So I'm like, I don't know anywhere else you can go in the United States where you're going to be that close to, you can glamp off of a body of water, walk to a waterfall, and enjoy a dog park. It's kind of awesome. And it makes me excited, because I'm like, that was just our first one. I'm like, I have no idea what we're going to stumble into, with property number 2. We're very, very excited. And I love that. I love that spot in New York. It's beautiful. So that's been
But now you
super
just threw a
fun and
lot out
exciting.
at me. Okay, so let me
Okay,
just try to package it
I'll
up here
slow
a bit.
down.
So it sounds like once you got into glamping and you established yourself and legitimized the Virginia glamping and got involved in groups online and started connecting with other enthusiasts, business opportunities started to open up, and property
Yes.
management was a big one. So you're
Yeah.
good at property management. So you started helping people do their own thing, and that led to other opportunities. Now you mentioned West Virginia and Arizona, and California, and I think New York. Did you mention New York? Is that the upstate?
Yes, I have the property there. That's the one property where I'm not the operator, which feels
Okay.
very different. Also
Okay.
kind of nice. So yes,
let's
it's just we're all over
which
the
ones are
place.
the big ones? So let's talk about the next property. We covered
Sure.
Virginia, but now let's go to the next property in your glamping timeline. Which one
Okay.
was that?
So the glamping timeline is a bit strange. So we immediately started looking for relocation. So we were researching places that are still close enough where we can leverage the team that we're doing, because I like to have my properties managed by my property management company, because it's just simple and I have a lot of control over the quality. But a lot of these places in Virginia is pretty heavily regulated. West Virginia, it's less regulated, but the income isn't always there. So we ended up, this is actually kind of a fun story, so I'm glad that you asked. Things just happened. So my dad and I, since he came down to live with me in Virginia to build the business
From
out
Michigan,
further.
right? From Michigan is
Yeah.
Okay.
He left Michigan about 9 months, I think, after I'd gotten started, so that we could do more together more quickly. And we joined the American Legion post in Luray because we were trying to, build up our community and just be more involved and show that, we're investors, but like we live here, like we're local to here. I live there half the year now. Like this is a real place. We're not just here to buy properties and walk off into the sunset. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when you're trying to do what we're doing, you kind of need to establish a little bit more of that local presence with at least some member unit of your team. So it doesn't have to be you per se. But in this case, it was us. And so then I volunteered to represent my generation of soldier in our Christmas parade. So it was very cute. One of the guys used his dad's World War II uniform. One of the guys wore his own Vietnam uniform. And then I wore the newer camo from our army. So that was super fun. And then I got off the float. I'm freezing to death. And my dad had texted me, we were going to meet up at a brewery, and he's sitting there talking to a gentleman named Kyle, and Kyle is the brother of a farm vineyard owner who were already familiar with. We went to a fundraising event there at one point, and it was beautiful. We didn't realize they had a bunch of land behind their grapes that's not being used, and they would like to develop it out they were thinking maybe cabins, since those do really well in the area. But those are obviously, you're going to build like a large number of cabins. It's a fairly expensive endeavor. So we were like, well, have you thought about glamping? He was like, well, I love glamping. He's like, as most of us were, all consuming like bus conversion YouTube over the pandemic. So he's like, I love all that stuff. Like, you guys should talk. Like, they'd probably be very interested. So we set up a meeting with them. And that all just came out of like my dad going to a brewery and talking about what we're doing and being curious about the other person too. Because if you just talk about yourself, you're probably not going to get very far.
Right.
So he basically just was himself, had that conversation, and it led to me walking into a business opportunity in my uniform. It was really fun. So like I said, we're still developing that. We actually just started managing. They opened up their tasting room, former tasting room, into like a little cottage for people to stay in. So there's one lodging component there, but we would like to literally 15x that. We have, during the time we were working on getting our survey for our plans we had to submit to the county, they put out an addendum or an amendment for their ordinance because another group had come in and built a $36 million campground. And they did a lot that the locals didn't like.
$36 million. That's
It's huge. It's massive. It's very like, they're very like on top of each other. It's a very high density campground. So it's very different from what we're trying to offer. Mm-hmm. But those guys coming in, it informed the local planning commission on what they didn't want. I don't think and this is not a criticism, I think it's hard when you're dealing in hypotheticals. I wish that they had asked some folks who are trying to do it locally what would make sense. So I'm hoping they kind of rewrite it. But in the meantime, in order for us to do that there, we are going to have to get a variance since when I leave Arizona here in a couple months, I'm going to be like walking the property with those folks who are going to help make that decision and ask them like, what would you like to see? Because the economic development department in that county, like the agritourism is exactly what they want to see, because agriculture is still the biggest industry in this county, and it's getting quickly like, oh, it's going to get overlapped at some point by the tourism. Right. But we don't want to leave the farmers behind. And like this family, they're really wonderful people at Wisteria Farm Vineyard. Go stay there, the rustic retreat with us. They are going to rely on this money. They're raising a family there in the local community, and they have beautiful land, and they should be able to use it for glamping, especially because like they sell alcohol. So it just makes sense to have lodging co-located with alcohol always. So I'm very enthusiastic about it. I'm still optimistic that it's going to go through. It's just taking a lot longer than it would have if we'd been able to get all of our survey back before the amendment came out.
Yeah. Two nuggets that I get. You connecting locally, like with the parade, that's fantastic. I encourage the same thing, getting involved. I write for a local paper and things like that, so I'm kind of involved as a community member, and that goes I think longer than people realize. For sure. And then the other thing, really tying into that agriculture, or not the agri-attainment or agriculture, is it what you talking about?
Agritourism.
Agritourism. Thank you.
Yeah.
That fits. That's the square peg in the round hole idea.
Exactly.
I could think, well, with that property, they're trying to preserve the vineyard that's probably been there for like 1 billion years, and they want to preserve that idea, and glamping fits it like a glove. So then that sounds like you've got the planners on your side, and you're pushing forward, and you're going to be done with your plans there pretty soon and start building, or did you have something built there already?
So we had the plans, we submitted them literally like as close to the cutoff as we could, and then realized that they didn't have everything defined. So we were just kind of like, here's what we have, like, how does this fit with these new changes? Like there's open space that they're requiring between, they're not counting space between sites. And there was some confusion in terms of where all we can consider it open space. I'm like, well, we're allowing them to use the camping is going to be all the sleeping will happen in one area, but they are allowed to wander through like all of the farm vineyard area. And then like there was a stipulation about vehicles, and we're like, well, what about a tractor? So like I think they need to go back and rewrite a few things, or like clarify a few things, but that's pretty common. They write these very broad so that they can kind of pick and choose who they like and how they can get them through. So I'm hoping I can just be one of those people, to be frank. So we're working on it.
Yeah, good. All right, so that's West Virginia. Now you're in Arizona right now. What's that?
Yeah, that one's in Virginia. Yeah.
Oh, it's in Virginia. Okay.
Yeah.
But do you want to talk about Arizona now and what you've got going on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I would have loved to do glamping here in the county where I'm residing for part of the year. It literally, they cracked down around the same time I got here. I was starting to see floods in our group in host camp. People had like Airstreams in like Williams, Arizona, on the way to the Grand Canyon. They were starting to get shut down, and people's domes. I was like, man, what is going on? They're not even very friendly. If you have larger, like it's not just about parcel size. A lot of times, if you have more land, they are more likely to help you. But that just has not been the case here. So not really doing the glamping I would have liked to with Arizona, but I am renting out. I rent out this house when I'm not here, and then there's an ADU here that offsets the mortgage. I think everyone should do something like that with their home, their living space, whether it's a tent in the backyard, a second unit on their lot that they can rent out long-term or short-term, whatever makes sense for your market. But just reducing your living expenses like that really helps you. You don't have to worry about that expense, and you can just be a little bit more aggressive in your investments, I think.
Did you take a hit out there in Arizona? I mean, did you do some investing and have some anticipation that you were going to be building something, and then all of a sudden the doors closed on you?
No, not quite. I also have another project on the western side of the state where I think there's opportunity for glamping there potentially. I'm trying to establish a foothold there. We have actually a fully renovated traditional home that's been going on there, but we're looking now, me and a few other folks will be partnering with me on that. We're looking at doing maybe like some storage container glamping, something like that.
I know about storage
Primarily
containers. They're awesome.
yeah, exactly. We don't really, tents wouldn't work there. It's way too hot for too many months out of the year, without doing like a very elaborate tent. I know they have some in Zion that are like amazing. I don't know how they do it. I really need to go stay in one to experience it myself with like tents with full on mini splits attached. It's crazy. We're not planning on doing that. But there is still opportunities in the state, and I'm happy to drive anywhere in the state. It's beautiful. You can't really go in a bad direction. Just happens the county I moved to is one. There's only 16 counties here, and this is one where you really can't. They aren't down with the glamping.
Yeah. It's interesting that I mentioned this the first take we did that Zach Stoltenberg, who is now, okay, we're recording this yesterday. I released it, episode number 4.
Oh, wonderful.
It was Zach Stoltenberg. He's doing something on his private property too, but he's an actually glamping expert. And he specifically said the Flagstaff area was very difficult to glamp. And that was like, kind of like, I don't know if he experienced this or got to talk to anybody. He said it was just, they were just stubborn. They did not want glamping in the area, even though it made tremendous amount of sense because the Grand Canyon's right there. It's a destination tour that people could stop and glamp along the way. And it just seemed to make all the sense in the world.
It does.
Except to the bubbleheads in the government. they just didn't see it that way. Did you have some experience of that or any kind of meetings or something?
Well, I do have friends in the county, and we've been dealing with some septic issues here. So I've been chatting with the county pretty heavily, but all in all, also John Hildebrand, he's on the Arizona board for like responsible tourism. I've met with their organization here. They did a meetup in Flagstaff, and basically it's not that I think the government would be okay with it. It's just that they can't get voted in by tourists. They have to get voted in by locals, and the locals are extremely opposed to all the glamping. They don't like it, which I'm like, okay, well, you can't gatekeep the Grand Canyon. Like that doesn't seem right. I will say it is still relatively easy to get a permit for doing a short-term rental here. Still relatively easy. Although there's so many people that do it here because a lot of people have second homes here that it may not be the best use of cash unless you plan on spending a lot of time here for yourself. Then it can make sense. But unfortunately, no. Like, there's not really, like, if your friend can't get through, I'm not trying to fight all of the uphill battles. You have to pick and choose where you fight. And I know you drive an hour out from here, and you can glamp. So it's not the end of the world. Okay.
So people can glamp there. They're just not in the prime real estate. And you have plenty of other things going on. You said, so let's go to the next thing. So that's Arizona. What's the next development that you've got on the table?
Yeah. Well, we did just open Seneca Pines Lodge, which is in West Virginia. That's probably where you got the West Virginia from.
Back to the East Coast. Okay.
Yeah, back to the East Coast. So that is located about 5 minutes from a major like rock climbing destination in the area. It's very rural, but we have a little 6-unit motel there that's doing really well. I'm loving it so far. People are really loving it so far. I'm very interested in doing more of those. I like it when there's like a motel or lodge component and then extra land to do glamping. I think that's probably my favorite genre because I love the steady income and like the easy, like you can rent it all year if you have a big, nice
Mhm.
lodge or some motel units. And then you could do seasonal glamping, depending on the environment, the snow, things like that. So that is one that we're still finishing up, but the income's coming in finally after we bought it about a year ago. That's been great. And then, like I said, Timberline Equity, we are actually have calls to make to a county after we get off the phone. So that's what's next. Is the big acquisition with those guys. Finishing building the project with Rob. There's another home we're lined up to build right after that
Oh, wow.
in Stanley, Virginia. Yep, and that's
Okay.
gonna be super fun. I will plug them once it goes well. It's a kit. They build you a kit home, but it's pretty much custom, and then pieces are delivered, and it speeds up the construction process. So that goes well. I may have to dive into what that was like if people want to do stuff like that.
It's like a prefab
And
home or that's Timberline Equity. Is that what you mentioned?
no, Timberline Equity is the acquisition group I have to buy these bigger campground properties I could never buy on my own.
Okay.
Never, not never, but not right now.
Okay.
So that's Timberline Equity. And then hopefully doing more with Rob as well as our construction comes to a head in April. I think we are going to be sitting down and going, we enjoy working with each other. What is next? So, and that could mean anything, which is super exciting. I would say once you learn how to fundraise, or you don't have to learn and you get plugged in with people who fundraise, again, everyone should go read Who Not How. You don't have to do everything. That's like my mantra, is figure out who needs to do what and what you need to actually be doing with your day. Because we can't work. You can't work 24/7. And even if you could, you're only one person.
Yeah.
And you only know so much about so many things.
Oh, well, you're speaking to my heart here, honestly. that this is convicting to me because I do feel either for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes I don't just trust anybody who says they can do something. But then also I feel like I need to learn the ropes myself and then pass it on, get to the point of passing it on. But it is something that I struggle with is doing it all myself. And then, or the people who are very close to me, and then before entering or bringing people in to, it just is, it's such a tension I think every business person suffers through. It sounds like you don't suffer as much as I do.
Well,
that's it.
I think I had to, it's just been a natural consequence of going so broad, like, because I'm not focused on one thing. I'm focused on all sorts of things. I forced myself into those quote unquote better business habits. It's not like I had them naturally. I was living on my property just like you were. Like if the cleaner called out, I was cleaning. I did too much there, which is part of why I was more than not happy. But when it had to be let go, I was like, I recognized that my time and attention and creative energies, because that's what it is. If it doesn't require your creative energy, it needs to be delegated as soon as possible. Now, there is also the problem of money. You can't hire people when you can't make payroll. So like it has to be supported by income, which means you have to continue to make smart and strategic decisions. There are still things I'm doing that I know I'll take that hat off eventually, but you have to be able to afford it. So there is that. So don't feel too bad. Like there's always, but you have to make sure you're feeling the conviction when it is affordable and look at it more of, I always remind people, like, yes, like it's an investment of, like say you're paying somebody like $80 to go clean for you. That's an investment. And then what are you doing with that time duration that you bought your own time back with your $80 basically? It's like, what can you create that is $80 or
at least $80?
Ideally like 3 times that $80 is what you should be targeting. And that thought exercise, like I paid heavily for business coaching. Otherwise I don't think I would be here. I think I would still be doing a lot myself. So it's not like I learned this on my own. It was beat into me, and with about a $10,000 investment that I made in coaching over the course of a year. So I just saved y'all $10,000. Just
No, business coaching, mastermind groups,
Hmm.
online groups, and things like that. That's that education arm
Oh yeah,
of our business. We need to be feeding ourselves, or else, yeah.
exactly.
I kind of I call it the what the have I called it, like the mom and pa syndrome. That if your
Yeah.
glamping operation just continues to be a mom and pa, nothing against mom and pa shops.
No.
It sometimes fits people very, very well. It doesn't fit for Wendy and me.
Hmm.
We want to be kind of hands off. We want the
Yeah.
business to run on its own. And I'm that actually, I can't beat myself up too much. Thank you for telling me not to feel too bad,
You're
because
welcome.
this education arm of Monument Glamping that I'm doing right now with Glamping Guy is because we've set up processes. And so there's the cleaning's being done right now. It's a Monday morning right now, and we've got a lot of cleans from the weekend, and someone else is doing it. We've got those processes in place so
Nice.
that we're not doing it. So, and
Nice.
that frees me up, because I want Glamping Guy to be even to triple that money.
Even bigger. Exactly. And you reminded me, I almost forgot to mention a whole project that happened concurrently with the motel getting set up was we were the who for someone else. So my team was hired to help oversee construction and help build certain aspects of what is now known as Faraway Camp in Luray, Virginia. So some other
Oh,
host campers. So again, this one network mastermind class has just paid infinite dividends for me, basically, in terms of who approaches me, who I am able to go approach. And they were like, hey, well, you guys are there. We're having a really hard time because the labor market there is pretty tough. So we're like, yeah, like we're more than happy to help. So worked out a mutually beneficial arrangement for that period of time. And then during that, they decided, well, you guys should just manage it from day one. So then that's what we did. So now we're managing someone else's campground too, which I'd love to do more of. It's been super fun. They're doing all kinds of stuff that I don't know about. And they're like, oh, by the way, a TikTok just went out and I got multiple phone calls after that TikTok. So that's cool to see their marketing budget go somewhere and turn into something. So that's been super fun. And
I
I share that because like I am on both sides of the coin. Like I hire people out. Sometimes people hire me. It really just depends on like making sure everyone is kind of being just like you want your land to be at its best and highest use. You have to also be at your best and highest use with your day. So
yeah.
that's super important.
Words of wisdom. Words of wisdom. Good.
I'm trying.
Anything else to unpack here? So you got Virginia, West Virginia, Arizona. You mentioned California, didn't you? You got your
Yeah,
hands
that's
in
just a
California?
nice big house for it's my best
Oh, it's
friend.
just a nice big house. It's just one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I don't own it. I've been running it remotely. That's the first time I went in. Well, no, it's not. It's the first time I went into an area where I didn't have someone that I could just easily drive. It's 11 hours for me to get there from here if I drive. So I've had to really leverage. That's like feels like the first big remote investing I've done because everything else, like I'll drive 4 hours, I'll drive 6 hours, but I can't consistently drive 11 hours, and because you can't turn around and do that in a day. So
Yeah, it's almost a
that's been
flight.
a
It's almost a then you might as well do a
yes.
flight. Yeah, I get you.
Exactly, exactly. So that's been a good lesson in more remote management for me because like I feel like remote managing your own team is cheating a little bit. Not that you shouldn't cheat. I think it's smart. And I would love to like optimize the team I have in Shenandoah and then copy and paste it in these other areas where I'm starting to get as an idea. I'm like, if that market is somewhere I want to continue to grow, it's also nice to kind of just take on a house for someone and recognize I don't love this market for one reason or another. Like I don't know how long it'll take before I have beach properties. I don't really know that that's like my guest that I know how to sell to as well. I am a very like outdoorsy. I like the mountains. That seems to be where all of my properties end up. Is like you can drive to, or even here I can walk to a national forest and do
Mhm.
hiking and all those same sorts of activities. They attract the same types of people. So I think that's something to really evaluate in your glamping business as well, is who is your guest avatar and why are you qualified to sell to them? When if you're not, maybe you need to hire someone, or maybe you need to evaluate, a different market set for yourself to make sure that it's in line with who you are, because you're part of the brand.
Right. Okay, so California and anywhere else that you got something going on?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I hope not.
Where did New York come up? Did we talk about that the first take? It was in New York. I thought Northern.
Yeah. New York is the big campground that we have.
The big campground. Okay.
Presently. Yeah.
You didn't really talk about that. The big camp. So you bought a legal campground.
Yes.
So it's not a residential
No.
property that's being converted into a recreation camp and getting,
Correct.
Everyone sees you and thinks you're a campground, but you have to explain that you're not.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is actually a campground that
Yes.
that people have. So, okay.
Yes. Yeah, we purchased, it's been in operation since like the 90s. So, and that I did mention a little bit, that one has the big seasonal presence. So it's 85 acres. And when we purchased it, it had 298 units. We've added a few, and there's more we will be adding next year. We're adding 12 more RV sites to sell seasonally. That's just very stable income. And then we are developing glamping along the creek side. And then we also have...
I found, I don't know if you have found this to be true too, but campgrounds tend to want to get into the glamping action.
Yeah,
when we look at campgrounds as so that it's almost like the unique selling proposition that you're pushing forward is to have a glamping component to the campground.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. So we're trying to kind of reach a different avatar. Like we are located about an hour from Rochester, and it's a little further to Buffalo. So it's some population centers with young people. That's who's probably going to come enjoy the tent glamping, and also like local people when they have something to celebrate. It's a big thing to do for like an anniversary. Same with the seasonals. A lot of our business is going to come from like their friends and family coming and staying at our glamp site, so that they don't have to all cram into the one RV. So that's another reason it's like a great thing to offer, is there's so many different layers and so many different people to market to. And then there is another spot of land there where we're going to do more like a glamping pod. So like almost like a hard-sided tent, a very small dry cabin. And then we'll build a really cool pavilion up there that has like a commercial kitchen in it, hopefully host events. I'd love to like have our own mastermind summer camp thing and invite Chris Jube out to speak.
Yeah,
we can everyone can tour. Exactly. Everyone can tour the campground and like see what it's like on the day-to-day, but also like have these big conversations and just network and get to know each other. I think that would be so much fun. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully raising money and developing that next year. Also, we would love to do weddings. I think anytime you can tie glamping and weddings, you're just guaranteed to like, you're basically adding rocket fuel to your income, because weddings are so expensive. And then like family reunions as well. That's something we like to capitalize on. With those the glamping area, and then also the glamping pod area with the little cabins. We'd love to do that.
Yeah, it is something that's on, I think, most glamping operators' minds, is like, how can I turn this into an event venue? Because not only do you bring more money in, because people pay more money for an event like a wedding or a corporate event or whatever.
Retreat.
Retreat type of center, but also I found the operational expense goes down. I found that when I hand the keys over to someone else to take over the place, and I could go on a little vacation myself. I did that a couple of times this last summer, and that's where my crank is turning. It's hot. Oh, that was really sweet when I walked away on Memorial Day weekend even, and it was like, it would have been a hyper intense managerial weekend. Turned out to be we laughed and
who did you sell the campground to? What was the event?
It was a couple. They were actually neighbors, so they lived down the road a bit, or his mother lived down the road. He got married in Scotland like the summer before or something like that, and this was they were having and hosting a big party here with all of his friends and stuff. They were a big family and stuff. And so he housed a bunch of his friends and family here on the glamping site and rented the house, and they were here Wendy and I left.
That's awesome.
And it was great.
So that's so cool.
Yeah, it was like one big check instead of a whole bunch of little ones, and then he had a blast, and that was that's it. We did another one for a wedding. The wedding wasn't here. We're not a wedding venue, but the accommodation for the wedding party was here, and that worked out better than we thought it would work out. Honestly, at first we were kind of careful. Let's look at every detail and try to figure it out. But now we're like, hey, let's try to figure out how to do this for other people because we're meeting a need. So
yeah, exactly. Once we're able to, Faraway Camp is very small presently, but once we're able to build it out more and house more people, I'm definitely gonna be connecting with the local venues and just seeing if like we can offer shuttles from our campground and then maybe do like big room blocks and stuff like that for folks for events. I think that is such a good idea, and it's such a good way to like book yourself out just so heavily. So that's very much on the horizon. I love that you're already doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think we turned over all the stones that we turned over in the first episode and then some, didn't we?
I think so. Yeah.
The unrecorded episode.
I told you it would be fine. It'd be fine. We'd cover it all and it'd be more polished.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, this was great. And now where can people find you? Give me some websites that people can find you at.
Sure. Well, I'd first encourage you to follow me on Instagram because that'll help you find everything else if you aren't able to track it down from today. So I'm on Instagram at Lindsey. That's Lind as in dog, Shee. And then I also have the website for my service business. You can contact me there for all kinds of different services. That's Shenandoah Host Services. That's also our direct booking website if you ever want to check out Shenandoah, which is still a really great market for short-term rentals and other unique types of accommodations. And then Sun Valley Campsites has a website if you guys want to go play in a waterfall next summer. It's gorgeous. And then Faraway.camp is where you can come stay at Faraway Camp in Luray, which my team hosts as well. So all fair game, all kinds of different places to find me.
And I'll have all that in the show notes once I
Thank you.
take notes. So
Appreciate that.
This was lovely. This was a wonderful podcast, just like the other one. But I am recording this one, so this one's going to go live here pretty soon.
I see the red button. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Lindsey.
Awesome.
This was great. Thanks for being a part of the Glamping Guy podcast.
Of course, and thank you for having me.
That was an amazing conversation with Lindsey, wasn't it? What stood out to me most was her resilience and adaptability. From overcoming zoning changes in Virginia to expanding her operations across multiple states, she's really a model of entrepreneurship. I loved how she emphasized the power of networking and partnerships. It's a great reminder that we can't do this all alone. Man, that's convicting to me. Whether it's managing properties or hosting glamping events like weddings or retreats, Lindsey is showing us what's possible in the glamping industry. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with someone who's dreaming about building their own glamping operation. And leave a review, doggone it. I need some more reviews in those comment sections. This is a new podcast, and if you like it, share it and write a review about how much you have appreciated the guests that I've had on the show. Until next time, I'm Chris Jube, the Glamping Guy. Keep building those safe, legal, and profitable glamping operations. We'll see you next time.